Most of us would like to live in peace and harmony. But what happens when the people next door turn out to be neighbours from hell?
Oh my God!
Oh! Mom, get the police!
Whether it's noise.
This is the sound of the music coming into my flat.
Air pollution.
Look at the smoke!
Or rows about where to put the rubbish.
You're not putting that outside my house. It's my house, you screw.
And now, with home surveillance getting more high-tech, when neighbours turn nasty, more and more of it is being caught on camera. Tonight, when the rubbish began piling up next door,
Absolutely shocking.
why one woman had to call in the clean-up cavalry.
There was dirty nappies and things with all the mixed rubbish. It was enough to make you sick.
Oh my God!
The man who endured a neighbour's party from hell.
It was Armageddon, basically.
Then woke up to carnage on his doorstep.
It was like a bomb had gone off outside our house. It was that bad.
When my lovely neighbours have a party, they come out and they vomit all over your car.
Plus, experts reveal the powers we have to fight back against nightmare neighbours.
Whether a noise is unreasonable and unacceptable to a neighbour, there are laws that address this. People can take an action against their neighbour if they are affecting the way they use and enjoy their home.
Gives you the right.
Just go. You.
This is Neighbours from Hell, caught on camera. One of the most common reasons for falling out with your next-door neighbour is building work. On top of the noise and disruption, tempers can really flare when building work is close to a shared boundary.
So you're gonna beat me up because I'm building my own land? You think you're a big boy? I'm not building in your land, that's my day. I don't, the councillor told you. Listen, the council told you, you've taken 3 foot. You go. Okay, so you're gonna beat me up in the air? Okay, we'll see. I got it all on video, I'm getting you arrested. Criminal damage, everything.
And even before building work started on this house, the neighbour objected to a scaffold going up, claiming it was encroaching on his property.
I'm trying to remove it from my... It's not in your property, mate. It's on my property. It's in the airspace, above your head height. So we've got a little camera now, haven't we?
When it comes to building work next door, one of the biggest grievances is an unwanted extension.
It's a criminal offence to damage other people's property.
This Gloucestershire man built a 10,000 square foot personal leisure centre in his garden, which upset his neighbours as he didn't have planning permission. The people next door erected a fence to hide the new building, which he tried to tear down. He claimed the fence was on his land.
Shouldn't be on our land. Yeah, nearly thrown that in my face as well.
After a 4-year dispute, the man was ordered to demolish the entire building. Andrew Leakey has helped hundreds of warring neighbours, often over building disputes.
What's happening at the moment is lots of people are extending sideways, up, down, because of a lack of space, and it's a cheaper way of getting an extra room. And so you do see people falling out for all sorts of reasons, whether it's the builder going beyond the line. Our experience is if you speak to your neighbours, you are more likely to be able to avoid those problems than not. Seeking advice early, getting the right agreements in place with your neighbours can really help.
But in North Somerset, Mark ended up in a lengthy legal dispute over drainage after his neighbour built a new garage next door. Following a heavy storm, Mark's home and garden were flooded.
We had a really heavy storm. My son knocked on the door and said, we've got bad flooding. Now you've flooded the stables, it's flooded the office is underwater. We just can't work out why. So we start running around.
The issue was a blocked drainage pipe, which ran rainwater from Mark's property onto next door's land. Mark suspected his neighbour had deliberately blocked the pipe because it was directing water near to his neighbour's new extension.
Stain.
Mark's son went next door to investigate.
Another stain. Oh my God, how big. And there it goes. That's our neighbour blocking our drains.
After clearing the pipe, Mark and his son hoped they'd solved their flooding problem. But it happened again. This time they tried to clear the pipe from their side using drain rods.
Yeah.
No, he puts rocks in it. He kept blocking the pipe, and I didn't want to get confrontational with him.
But Mark had had enough, and armed with a spade, climbed into next door's garden, determined to clear the pipe once and for all.
This is my home being flooded by somebody being stupid. This is what happens when somebody fills ditches, blocks pipes, floods and damages somebody's property to stop water going on the ground, on the garden.
Mark's neighbour appeared and also began filming.
He knew the impact of blocking that pipe would have on our property. He'd seen the damage and just stood there plainly just saying, get off my land.
Get off my land. You're not going to block the pipe. Get off my land. You're not going to block the pipe. Get off my land. Please don't damage my home. A lot of hard work and possessions and valuables there, and you're just letting it all get flooded and damaged.
With neither man wanting their land to flood, the dispute escalated.
Decided to take me to court and issue proceedings against me for trespass.
Mark's neighbour says the dispute is now resolved and only started when Mark went onto his property and dug up his land. Both parties are hopeful that the dispute and their drainage issues will become a thing of the past. While most of us get on with the people next door, neighbours that get embroiled in ongoing disputes can make their properties harder to sell.
So in the conveyancing process, you have to declare all sorts of things, whether you've got issues with drainage, all those sorts of things, so somebody can work out whether they want to buy the house. One of the things you have to declare is whether there's been a dispute with neighbours. And most purchasers will see neighbour dispute and quite rightly run a mile, so you can end up in a situation where you are essentially stuck.
Most of us dream of the quiet life. However, there are 500,000 noise complaints received by councils every year.
Not impressed.
I have a noisy neighbour nuisance. Apparently she wears bricks as shoes, and I don't understand why all day, every day, she's tipping-tapping around that house. I mean, what are you actually... Sit down, watch the telly, take a break, take your feet, put your feet up for a second and shut up.
And a common noise complaint is loud music.
Well, this is the sound of the music coming into my flat. Let's go and see what it sounds like outside.
Mike Stigwood has spent over 40 years resolving neighbourhood noise disputes.
Whether a noise is unreasonable and unacceptable to a neighbour, yes, there are laws that address this. We have the law of statutory nuisance. People can take an action against their neighbour if they are affecting the way they use and enjoy their home. There is an expectation of quiet enjoyment. So you can behave in your home any way you like, provided you are not affecting the quiet enjoyment of your neighbours.
Councils can investigate complaints of noise nuisance at any time, day or night. But the level of noise deemed to disturb your neighbour's enjoyment of their home is officially lower between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Clary's got a karaoke machine tonight.
This lady managed to persuade her next-door neighbour to stop his late-night karaoke session.
Hello? Can you shut your window if you're going to sing at night, please? Sorry. Thank you.
But if the noise doesn't stop, the council can issue warning notices and fines of up to £1,000. In Salford, Javier claims his peace and quiet was shattered by frequent late-night partying in the apartment next door.
At its worst period, maybe 3 parties a week. I would punch the wall to try and get them to lower the music, and they upped the music when I did that.
Javier says his neighbours' parties would often carry on until the early hours of the morning.
There were days where I would only be able to sleep like 4 hours a night.
He got so fed up, one night he opened his window and protested to his neighbours.
Do you know we can't sleep at all? At all, zero. On the weekend. Yeah, and it's I have a right to sleep. You know that. I have a right to sleep. Exactly. You're depriving me of my right to be able to sleep.
But his complaints fell on deaf ears.
I sleep right there. I sleep right there. Oh, maybe I should change my room, right? I should change the room. I live here and I should change a room.
The decision whether to evict a noisy tenant rests with the managing agent or landlord. But Javier had had enough and decided to move out.
It was the easiest decision of my life. It wasn't even a question. We didn't have any doubts.
In Gloucestershire, Ross's noisy neighbours were eventually evicted, but only after they'd made his life a misery for over a year.
It's a bit hard to define how many parties they had in the flat upstairs, but the really big parties would happen sort of every few weeks or so.
But on New Year's Eve, things got out of hand.
It kind of started kicking off quite early in the evening. It started getting worse as larger numbers accumulated on our front lawn. You think, OK, it's New Year's Eve, that's not so bad, people are going to party and all that kind of thing. But it was screaming that was the main problem. They all came streaming into the house, carried on partying for several hours upstairs, but at no point did the outside party ever finish. It was just continuous for hours.
The police were called, but they didn't manage to put an end to the festivities.
The police were fantastic. They turned up and they'd stop everything. And as soon as they'd gone, 5 minutes later, suddenly it would all kick off again.
The following morning, Ross discovered exactly how out of hand the party from hell had become.
Fully expected to see empty cans, probably some smashed bottles, that kind of thing. In reality, it was Armageddon.
When my lovely neighbours have a party, they come out and they vomit all over your car.
My car had been repainted with vomit, I think is probably the best way to describe it. It was disgusting.
They throw stuff out of the window. There's tomato ketchup, brown sauce, lots of rubbish around here that was them last night. E45 cream.
Our windows were covered in what looked like brown sauce and ketchup.
That's our camera that they broke.
It was like a bomb had gone off outside our house. It was that bad.
No. On the front door, we have purple paint, and we know that was them because they've sprayed the floor in here as well.
But for Ross, the misery came to an end when his party-loving neighbours were evicted by the council as a result of the complaints.
When they eventually got removed from the street, these people, we ended up having a lovely big party to celebrate the lack of parties that were going to happen upstairs from now on.
Coming up, what's worse than one neighbour from hell? An entire street full.
This is not a nice road to live on. I reckon it's never going to end.
While most of us get on with the people next door, in some parts of Britain, antisocial neighbours can make residents feel like they're under siege in their own homes. In fact, according to a poll, a third of us have been affected by antisocial behaviour on our doorstep. From neighbours being rowdy, to vandalism, or even letting off fireworks in the middle of the road. In Salford, this CCTV camera was erected after neighbours complained about antisocial behaviour on their estate. But ironically, within days, the camera pole was cut down by vandals. Joe Grimshaw works for the police, helping to solve neighbourhood problems.
Antisocial behaviour in regards to the legislation talks about behaviour that causes or likely to cause alarm, harassment, distress. I think the main issue with antisocial behaviour is that normally it's not just a one-off occurrence. It will be lots of potentially smaller issues that occur over a longer period of time, and it is that drip, drip, drip effect will eventually cause that explosion at the end.
In Birmingham, Jamil claims his family have been tormented by antisocial neighbours for nearly 10 years. On one occasion, he says he was approached and asked if he wanted to buy stolen goods.
That's when we saw the true colours that this is not a nice road to live on.
To make matters worse, some of Jamil's neighbours had started using a patch of derelict land next to his house to fly-tip rubbish. And one evening, someone set it all on fire.
And we have fire.
Well, there were mattresses, sofa, beds, fridges, all lit up. Whoever done it, they done it deliberately at the time. My gates nearly caught fire.
With the growing number of incidents, police were regularly called to the street. But the antisocial behaviour on Jamil's doorstep showed no signs of stopping. And one night, a neighbour's house party spilt out into the road.
There was a lot of people that night outside. And what they did was they did a fireworks display right in the middle of the road and near our front room window. Those rockets were just directly hitting our upstairs bedroom window and downstairs window in our car.
With a firework display now unfolding on their doorstep, Jamil's CCTV footage shows partygoers holding on to lit rockets and letting them explode close to people's houses.
My family were petrified that night. I've never seen them in that much terror. It makes me feel really bad. I feel like crying right now. But what's the point of bringing tears out when we got to live with all this?
Jamil and his family now want to move, but until they can find somewhere new to live, he says they'll have to put up with a neighbourhood from hell.
I reckon it's never going to end. It's going to continue because the offenders are used to it. It's their part of their life.
Coming up, when next door's garden becomes a health hazard.
Oh my God!
The woman who had to call in the council.
Oh my God, the smell was absolutely horrendous. I'm sorry to say I've never smelled anything like it.
Well, this councilman has just seen 2 big rats.
And how CCTV finally caught a thief that had been stealing from neighbours for years.
I think her words were something along the lines of, "You're not going to believe this, but I think I know who the culprit is."
In Britain, we have long taken pride in where we live. Whole communities rallied round to keep our towns and villages spick and span. Nowadays, most of us still take pride in keeping our homes and gardens presentable. But your neighbours may have different standards of upkeep. And if you live next door to a messy neighbour, it can be hard to stomach.
Filth. Disgusting filth.
In Nottinghamshire, the former tenants of this house had recently moved out. Unfortunately for the landlord, their mess didn't move with them.
And the tenants have just left. Let's see what mess they've left. Oh, nice holes in the door. Oh, hey, the door's falling off. We seem to have smashed some windows. Let's have a look on the back garden. Whoa, baby! What a nice lot of rubbish for the bin men.
With huge piles of rubbish in the garden, the mess might have been a nightmare for the neighbours. But who do you turn to when next door's garden becomes a health hazard?
You spend all of your time keeping your side of the fence nice and tidy and the other side looks like it's a rubbish tip, then that's not really acceptable. For those victims, the first port of call is to the Environment Health Department. It's your housing association would be your best port of call to start off with to try and resolve the issue.
People are reading how you behave with your bins as to how you're behaving as a member of the community. And yes, there are big problems. So animals do raid them. And we do have fly problems from bins, and they are perceived to just perpetuate the problem with rats and those sort of issues, particularly in large town centres.
And if your neighbour's garden becomes a health hazard, local councils have the power to issue a warning. Failure to comply can lead to a fine or even prosecution.
Come into the fence!
But in Glasgow, one resident took a rather unadvisable approach to dealing with his waste.
What the you doing?
His next-door neighbour noticed what appeared to be an out-of-control fire in his garden.
It's me! Your neighbour, let me see this fire!
What is happening?
What are you doing? You having a bonfire?
I'm just on my couch.
Better watch, man, because all the smoke's coming out of the neighbour's windows.
I made sure they did the washing out.
Look at the smoke! Are you burning the full egg?
I'm burning a 3-piece sweetmeat.
In Wigan, Yvonne's problems with a less-than-house-proud neighbour got so desperate that even her local MP became involved. Before the issues began, she and her neighbour had been on good terms.
My next door neighbour, she moved in about 5 years ago. We were good friends, like, you know, talking, and I used to do lots of things for her.
But this new neighbourly friendship was about to be tested.
The first things I spotted was takeaway boxes, and then just like bin bags of rubbish left out on the front and not being put in the black bin. I mean, it's just pure laziness. Look at the state of the garden. Not one for complaining much, but look. That pan, rubbish, dirty nappies, everything.
Rubbish had also started piling up in the side alleyway.
And I couldn't give two hoots now. Also, this is down the side of my house. Sick of it. Absolutely shocking. There's bin bags going round to the side gate, all piled high, coming to my garden. And when you walk down the side of the pathway, the bin bags were piled high up to the kitchen window. Bin bags and bin bags and bin bags. I've never seen anything like it in my life. She doesn't do all, doesn't do nothing.
But the sight of the rubbish stacks wasn't Yvonne's main concern.
Oh my God, the smell was absolutely horrendous. I'm sorry to say, I've never smelled anything like it. And it was wafting my way, and there was dirty nappies and things with all the mixed rubbish, and it was enough to make you sick. Unbelievable. All you got to do is put a pair of gloves on and put it in the bin.
The rubbish continued to pile up for months.
So I was asking her to pick it up, and she wouldn't. I thought, well, I'm going to take matters into my own hands and get in touch with the Wigan Council to clear all the rubbish up. And then she got some letters and she didn't do anything. So I took it further and got in touch with the Wigan MP and took it from there.
After contacting her MP, the council said they still hadn't heard from Yvonne's neighbour. So they sent a specialist waste disposal team to clear the garden.
This is a nice chappie. Hello, Mr. Chappie.
I went outside and said, are you seriously clearing it? And he went, yeah. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
But the situation had festered for so long, it wasn't just rubbish that needed to be cleared.
Well, this council man has just seen 2 big rats in this garden. I've just heard him screech, that's the role, what they were in.
And the stench was so bad, it was too much even for the professionals to stomach.
Two of them ran out to the front, were being sick on the front because of seeing the rats and the smell.
Come, have a minute. What? Have a minute, mate.
I don't feel sorry for you, mate.
By the time they'd finished, the clear-up had taken an entire day and had filled 3 trucks.
Come on. How can people live like that?
Yvonne's neighbour has since moved house.
She's gone now, and I am relieved. You know, she's still in Wigan, but I am relieved, so God help whoever lives next door to her. I feel sorry for him.
We all want to feel secure in our own home. And now, with recent advances in home security systems, making CCTV cameras cheaper and more compact, we're now able to catch out neighbours who are up to no good. Like this woman in Derby, who didn't realise she was caught on camera making off with this Christmas wreath. In Sheffield, a doorbell camera caught this man stealing a neighbour's garden furniture. This footage was circulated online, and within a couple of days, the chairs fortunately reappeared back in the garden. In Nottinghamshire, when one village resident noticed his mail going missing, he lay in wait to capture the culprit on camera, only to discover it was his neighbour, who served on the Safer Neighbourhood Committee. In Bedfordshire, Stuart became a victim of theft when some of his son's possessions mysteriously went missing from his garden.
His little shin pads had gone, some goalkeeper's gloves, mini footballs.
Soon, some of the other neighbours also noticed items of clothing had gone.
I think it was probably for a good few months, possibly even as long as a year, that things were constantly going missing.
No one in the neighbourhood had any idea who this seemingly petty thief could be. But when Stuart bumped into his neighbour Leslie one day, it would lead to the mystery finally being solved.
Leslie asked me if my son Scott had lost anything in particular over the last little while. I think her words were something along the lines of, "You're not going to believe this, but I think I know who the culprit is."
Leslie has CCTV installed on her house, and so watched the footage for any evidence. And sure enough, the thief had been caught on camera. Incredibly, it was one of her cats, Dennis.
The other cats brought home the usual animals. Dennis obviously decided that he didn't want to kill anything, so he'd go and clean up the neighbourhood. Well, he brought a whole outfit once, a cardigan, a pair of trousers, a belt, socks, and he brought home a top. And that was all in one night. Oh, God, he was so proud of himself.
When Leslie revealed the identity of the thief, it naturally came as a huge surprise to the neighbours.
People didn't seem to believe that a cat would bring home a Fred Perry T-shirt, a massive cardigan, a football, a pair of shoes.
I was so shocked that actually there probably wasn't a lot I could say. I'd never known of a cat burglar before. You kind of hear the phrase, but that's kind of metaphoric, not a physical cat burglar.
And so, for this neighbourhood, instead of being torn apart by crime, Dennis's exploits actually brought everyone closer together.
I think Dennis had a great impact on neighbourhood spirit. He became the topic of conversation in the street itself.
People I hadn't spoken to would stop and talk to you about him. People around the local shops would be, what's he brought home today? What's he got? What's he got? So it was a talking point with neighbours.
Coming up, Neighbours to the rescue.
Just come here a sec.
The hero who stepped in to prevent the man next door from getting ripped off by bogus tradesmen.
So he threw the punch, and immediately I just lost my temper.
Just go. You.
Despite the problems some of us have with nightmare neighbours, according to a poll, 3/4 of us have called upon a neighbour in a time of need. In Manchester, neighbours had a whip round for this elderly gentleman after his groceries were stolen from his doorstep.
We've got some shopping for you as well.
I've got a car full of shopping for you.
Everyone's
she's shopping.
Oh, that's so kind.
His caring neighbours collected over £100 to help him in his time of need.
I've got loads. We've got loads of shopping. It's upset a lot of people.
So kind of
You're more than welcome. So you're going to accept this shopping?
A lot of people don't realise that there are great social benefits in getting to know your neighbours. Just knowing someone who can take in a parcel for you or keep an eye on the house if you've got to go away. And if something goes wrong, or perhaps there's someone down the street who's causing a bit of a nightmare for everyone, at least if you've got good, solid relationships with your other neighbours, that can help you resolve those conflicts.
In Leicester, 73-year-old Brian had to rely on his neighbour Barry to come to the rescue after 2 men knocked on his door demanding money. Brian was told by the men his property had a rat infestation and that it would cost £700 to put right. Brian only had some of the money on him, so the 2 men told him they would be back for the rest.
Brian rang me and said, look, I've paid these guys £300 and they're coming back for the rest of the money tomorrow. I said, well, I'll come early and we'll wait and I'll talk to these guys and let's see what all this is about.
The following morning, one of the men returned. So neighbours Barry and Brian went out to confront him together.
So what's this job that you're doing for him then?
Basically, he's got some vermins and that within
Right.
the garden.
Right, and how much have you took off him?
He said,
300 quid?
300.
And you come back for some more money? How much work did you do? How long did you spend here?
3 hours yesterday.
3 hours? Were they here 3 hours?
No, yeah, about 10 minutes.
Out of the corner of my eye, another guy turned up, walked through the gate.
What is the work that you're actually doing?
What's you doing, mate? This gentleman here is out there.
So what are you doing with your phone?
And he came in, sort of strode in very aggressively. And the first thing he did was he said, what are you doing with that phone? I said, I'm filming you.
What do you mean, what am I doing with my phone?
Your phone, what are you doing with that?
I'm recording it.
Hey, that phone. I'm gonna smack you.
You won't, mate.
I'm telling you nicely, put that phone down.
No.
Hey!
I expected that there was going to be a confrontation.
Put your phone down.
You'll regret it.
Put that phone down.
You.
Get out!
Just go.
So he threw the punch, and immediately I just lost my temper.
What gives you the right?
Just go. You.
All hell broke loose.
Come here, you.
I didn't know
What to do?
Call the police! Call the police, you!
It really upset me, you know what I mean?
Put it down. Put it down.
Off.
Put it down.
Off.
Put it down. Put it down.
Go on.
The men eventually realised that they weren't going to get any more money out of Brian with his neighbour present.
Which is the car?
Eh?
Which is the car?
Don't know.
Unfortunately, the culprits were never caught.
Right.
Just go. You.
Brian didn't get his £300 back. But it's thanks to his hero neighbour Barry that he didn't hand over even more money.
Put that phone down. Put it down.
There are always people who don't want to work honestly for a living, and they're looking for an easy way of making a buck, and they don't care who they take advantage of or who they hurt in the process.
While some neighbours are from hell, others are a constant nuisance. A large bonfire was just one of a long list of things this resident wasn't happy about.
This is just probably one of their sources of amusement when they're not running up and down the hill in their car doing their horn, off the neighbours, blocking the drive, off their neighbours, or making rude phone calls, off their neighbours. Seriously, guys, wake up. You live in a community.
But when a neighbour is intentionally annoying you just for laughs, it can really get under your skin.
The neighbourly thing. Let's put Des's bins in.
In Birmingham, this man decided to wind up his Aston Villa supporting neighbour.
Aston Villa and Birmingham City, they don't get on. So, what I'm going to do is stick a couple of these on Des's bin. That'll do. Perfect. There you go, Desmond.
But when his neighbour found out, he struggled to see the funny side.
What's up? What do you mean I'm a What? Anyway, up the blues, yeah, Des?
But spare a thought for anyone who lives next door to Stan. He specialises in coming up with extreme pranks to play on his neighbours.
I do enjoy it. It's the rush of it, I suppose. Even if you're on the receiving end of it, as long as you don't go to the extremes, it still puts a smile on your face.
When his neighbours went away on honeymoon, he spent a whole day covering the inside of their home with 14,000 post-it notes. And set up a secret camera to film their reaction.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
And when his other neighbours, Gareth and Kim, went abroad to get married, Stan decided to go one better.
Gareth and Kim asked me to look after their house as I'm their neighbour, and I had the keys to look after the pets. So I had the house to play with, so that's where the idea came from.
Gareth and his helpers set about filling their house with over 3,000 balloons.
The room was full, floor to ceiling. It was a house full of balloons.
Are we going to be able to get in there?
When a jet-lagged Gareth and Kim arrived home in the early hours of the morning, they were in for a shock.
Saw the banners across the door and we thought that maybe they'd just put balloons just inside the door, or yeah, we didn't think it would be that bad.
Oh my God! I'm going to kill him.
The kitchen just filled up within minutes and I was laughing, but I was like, what the hell have they done?
Oh, I can see the camera as well.
Gareth and Kim managed to see the funny side. But next time they go away on holiday, they'll be looking for a new pet sitter.
We're still good friends and still live next to each other, although now I don't get asked to look after the pets. That's someone else's job.
Most of us want to get along with the people next door.
Do you know we can't sleep at all? At all, zero.
But when things turn ugly, people are increasingly turning to cameras.
They come out and they vomit all over your car.
To fight back against neighbours from hell.
Go smash it!